So this section of up and down, much easier, much more manageable with that E-assist, I gotta say. Here you're basically having to stand up, sit down on a regular bike. But look, I'm just going right over this stuff. And if I knew how to ride this thing better, I'd probably be pushing through even faster. One of the thoughts that does occur to me in terms of having an E-assist is it makes you a better rider on your regular bike, because essentially it teaches you how much torque, speed, agility you need for various features that might have just forced you to dismount in the past. So from that standpoint, it's also a good learning tool, which seems a little counterintuitive because you figure you're being lazy on an e-bike, but that's not necessarily the case. I mean, you do have to work to throw this thing around. Some of the stuff I would be launching on my Bronson, but I don't know if I'd become experienced enough to be able to launch on this guy. Possibly, but it's launching a 50-pound bike even with E-assist, I think, is probably a bit of a challenge. Not that I haven't seen people do it, but they're much better riders than me. Most of this stuff I'm just rolling because I don't really know what I can't really figure out the amount of pressure I need to put on the pedals commensurate with the amount of torque I get really fast. And you just don't want to overheat on these drops and turns. Surprisingly, I don't feel guilty. I think this is basically inevitable. It's a wave of the future. We're not going to stop it. And I'm having a good time, and that's the important thing. And we're back. I'm looking at my watch. Okay, so that run I just did used to be the classic old Tiger run. Used to take 2.5 hours. I did it in less than 1.5, I think. So yeah, back at the car and looking at the meter. I used about half, a little more than half the battery in a 1.5 to 2 hour run. Well, that ain't bad. I mean, I figure I could probably get another run in. Most of the batteries on the uphill, I don't use that much on the downhill, so that's not a problem, I don't think.
So here's my thoughts on downhilling. Again, it's a mixed bag. Having a motor comes in handy for short bursts, popping up over rocks and ledges, for sudden technical risers and steep switchbacks. And if you're just bombing down straightaways or flow trails, you're getting a similar ride to a mountain bike. But the extra bulk and weight of an e-bike also has drastic downsides when it comes to agility, to whipping the bike around, pulling up on drops, and doing anything along the lines of launches, jumps, gaps, and so on. In most downhill situations, a mountain bike is going to be more fun than an e-bike. But the trade-off is you'll get more downhill runs in on an e-bike simply because the climbs are so much faster. Now, another plus for an e-bike, as I mentioned, it can have benefits in scoping out trail gnar. It gives you instant feedback on the speed and oomph needed for various obstacles and challenges. It's like a compact tutorial. I learned more riding the e-bike in this respect than by sessioning a certain segment. So really there's trade-offs in both directions. It just depends on what kind of riding you want to do.